Alright guys, welcome back to another Weaver's Woodshop. And here we are with part 2 of getting a deep pour out of a tabletop epoxy. And as you can see, I'm starting to take apart the mold here so we can see what we got. I know I'm kind of anxious. I mean, I can see it, still in the mold, and I'm pretty sure we got what I'm looking for here. It's definitely hardened since I let it all set up. It's been about 5 days, since I poured it and I let it set up, and looks to me like I've got about an inch, because I know that the frame is just over an inch. So I think I got what I'm looking for here. So let's hurry up and get this sucker apart and see what I got going on so we can get to it. As you can see, when I put this mold together, I did use the Tyvek tape or the Saran tape or whatever you want to call it. One thing I did forget though is I forgot to wrap the pieces with the tape before I put it together. So a little FYI for those of you that are maybe getting ready to do something similar to this is cut the pieces first, then wrap the pieces of wood individually before you put everything together. Because as you'll see, as I take the piece out of or off of the final piece, it causes some issues because of the wrinkles and things that you'll see in the final piece, which ended up not being a problem for me because the back of it I ended up frosting anyways, but I had to sand off the wrinkles and stuff like that. Just caused a little bit more work down the line. But if you're building your own mold, cut the pieces individually, wrap the pieces individually, then put it together. Pre-drill your holes, screw it together. Some people go ahead and use 16 gauge or 18 gauge nails, finish nails, whatever, and they go ahead and nail it together, and then caulk both the inside and the outside. Let the caulk dry before you go pouring. Spray it down with your mold release and you should be good to go. But since I taped it down after I put it together, I think the tape actually helped hold it together. It didn't come apart as easily as it should have. So anyways, here we go with the taking it apart, so we finally get to see what it looks like out of the mold. And something I wish I would have thought about when I first started taking the mold apart is I decided to put down a little stop block here, because that mold was sliding all over on me. Once I put that little stop block down, I just rotated the mold and beat against that stop block, and that made it a heck of a lot easier. So go ahead, put yourself a little stop block down and give yourself something to beat against while you're doing it. It made it a heck of a lot easier. And now I finally have that mold all beaten apart and taken apart. I've removed the stop block. Now I'm using little chisels and multi-tools and some pieces of scrap wood in order to break that seal of caulking that I put underneath to keep the epoxy from flowing and leaking out all over the place. And that's all that's holding that piece down to the piece of MDF board where I built the mold from. It's not the epoxy that's sticking to it. It's just simply the caulking that is now sticking the two together. So once you break that seal all the way around, the epoxy pops right up off of it, no problem. So definitely be sure to use that mold release spray, and definitely be sure to use that tape, because they definitely do their job. And if you'd like to see more content like this, go ahead and smash that like and hit that subscribe and hit that little bell so you know when I put more content up. Thank you. And if you'll look as I pull it up, I'll freeze it for a second. You'll get to see where it gets all cloudy. See right there as it gets cloudy? That's what I'm talking about. If you don't go ahead and get that tape perfectly smooth, you'll let all that air and you'll get lines and bubbles and all kinds of stuff. Like I said, for me, it ended up working out okay because I needed to sand the back in order to get it frosty. But if I was looking for a crystal clear, I would have ended up having to sand it down and polish it, or sand it and re-pour the back. So yeah, be sure that you do a better job than me as far as taping down those pieces and taping them down individually before you put it together. Now what I got to do is I got to square up those edges, which is a little bit tricky because I'm using live edge wood here, using live edge Cuban mahogany. So it looks a little off even though I've got those edges perfectly straight. I just used the longest edge that I could. I measured it out, and as you can see, I used my straight edge there, put my circular saw on it, and went ahead and cut that straight edge. And all epoxy cuts just like wood. It makes a little bit bigger mess, but it cuts just like wood. And once I got all four sides cut, you'll see what I do with it. And I don't know what the official real way, if there is a different way of doing this or not, but like I said earlier, I had to or I wanted to frost the very back of this picture frame, set the pictures to where they have a frosting in the background. And as you can see, I first started with 220, and then I just decided to go down to a 120. The 220 just wasn't giving me enough of a frost kind of look, and I was trying to get out some of those imperfections that I was telling you about. And I actually even ended up going down to even an 80 grit, and then going back up to a 120 to get out some of those 80 grit scratches, and it ended up working out great. The frost look that I was looking for. And then here's the finished product here. I think it turned out all right. So let me know down in the comments what you think. And again, if you like this kind of stuff, do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe, folks. Come on now.